the income statement, it's one of the things about our book versus other books is that income statements are usually not presented in a single step. One of the things that they teach in accounting, most accounting ones, they just show revenues minus expenses equals net income. But if you looked at your companies and the projects, you saw that it was a lot more complicated than that, and that there was all these different subtotals along the way, and that can get very confusing. So let's go through what the typical items are and what some of the subtotals are. All of this refers to the income statement, which is on page 79, right over here. Now, I don't think Apple needs much of an introduction. This is a kind of an older income statement for Apple. Newer ones, Apple has become a lot more profitable since then. But this is from 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. And you can see that Apple's income statement has several steps. You have sales minus cost of goods sold is gross profit, minus all of these other items, which are called operating expenses, gives you something called operating income. Minus these, plus or minus these other items, which are called non-operating, gives you income before income tax. Minus income tax expense, which is called provision for income tax, gives you income from continuing operations. Plus or minus any non-recurring items, they'll talk about what they are, gives you net income. So when companies are preparing their income statements, they usually, this is a common format, but there are other formats that companies typically use. And you may have seen something on your own company. I know someone showed me Disney before, and Disney had one expense item. They had sales and they had expenses. And they combined cost of goods sold with all this other stuff into a single line item. Hi, that's how they did it. Companies have a lot of freedom in how they want to do this. Let's go over some of the comments, some of the basic definitions here again. Remember, revenues are the inflows that the company gets from doing whatever it does to make money. And expenses, and this definition of expenses is very important to understand, because this is probably different from how you think about expenses in the past. Expenses are the cost of bringing in revenues. Expenses are the costs of bringing in revenues. So the idea here is that you would not have an expense unless you would hope that it would give you revenue. So if you're running a business, let's say you're running a lemonade stand, all the investments that you make in the business, all the costs that you have are incurred, are spent with the thinking that those are going to bring in revenues. That's a very important principle. The biggest expense for many companies is what's called cost of goods sold. This is the cost of making or buying the goods that the company is going to sell. So for Apple, for example, how does Apple make money?
Selling products.
Selling products. Selling what products? Phones, laptops, what else? Tablets, iPods, iPads, iPods, right?
They do like an ITV kind of thing.
Yeah.
What's ITV?
Apple TV. Apple TV.
Apple TV?
Yeah, it's like
It's got Netflix, HBO Go, Hulu, and then like every kind of specialized station you can imagine.
It's called Apple TV.
You watch like
you don't need
YouTube
cable,
by
you
it.
just use that.
They do a lot of things.
It's on YouTube.
So, and they have, is there a monthly charge or something?
No.
Just on the accounts that you have.
Whatever accounts you have. So you can hook your computer.
Yeah.
It's just a little box that's this big.
You hook a box up to your TV,
Yeah.
No, it's like hardware.
And then it's a Wi-Fi.
and you get it through. It works with Wi-Fi.
So you can like look through.
How do you control it?
It has a little
It's
clicker.
got a little clicker. You can use your phones. Everything.
Yeah. That sounds pretty good.
Sync
Yeah,
up
it's
your-
really-
And you don't have to get cable then.
Yeah, my dad puts out instead of cable on my
Apple TV. Wow.
But then you can also like AirPlay things from your computer.
AirPlay. That sounds so cool.
Yeah.
What's AirPlay?
You can mirror your screen from your computer onto the TV. So like if something's not on Apple TV, then you can just like get it up on your computer.
Watch
Like
it
it's just like
It's like a movie or Netflix or something like that. But Netflix you can get directly.
Yeah, but not Amazon, man. I think it's GoFi or something.
Oh It's like through Amazon Prime. Like there's like movies.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I have Amazon
Yeah.
Prime. I don't have Amazon Prime because then I would watch too many movies.
Yeah. Well,
So I didn't buy it.
bring that up on Apple TV as well.
Oh, you can bring up Amazon Prime by bringing it up on your computer.
Well, I think you can even do it through that now.
Really?
Yeah.
So you can hook up your Kindle to it and then watch it on Apple TV? So how does Apple make money on this?
Like the food.
Just selling the hardware.
Selling the hardware, that's it?
Well, I mean,
Not that.
Yeah.
and like Netflix probably has.
Yeah, I think they get money from each company to be on it.
Really?
Yeah.
So the companies pay Apple money in order to run on it?
Plus, you
They
can buy
probably make like
virtual
a
app.
certain percentage of what, you know, like the membership fees. They probably make a certain percentage. I don't know how much it is, but
So you get revenue from that. What else does Apple get revenue from?
iTunes.
iTunes. Is anyone here old enough to remember record stores?
I think I saw like a store near
So let me relate an old man's stories to you, right? When I was a kid and you wanted a new record, you had to go to the record store. So you take the bus to, in my case it was Corvettes, was the name of the store in Hempstead, West Hempstead, and take the bus there, and you have this record, okay, great, $7.99, whatever it was, and then you get the record, and then later on you could get cassettes. Well, before that we had 8-tracks, but that's before my time. Cassettes, and then later on they had CDs, right? And so if they didn't have it, they could order it for you, or you could try another record store and drive all over the place till you found what you were looking for. Today, you go online, you go onto iTunes. I like this Philip Phillips guy in Coldplay, so I bought the Philip Phillips album in Coldplay. Now you know what to listen to because your professor listened to it, so it's too geeky. And downloaded it on Friday, and that was it. Think about it from a business point of view. It's pretty amazing. From a business point of view, in order to sell records 20 or 30 years ago, my God, I'm old. To sell records 30 years ago, what did you need? You need to have a building, right, that's near your customers. And you needed to have employees working in the building. You need to have heat, electricity, air conditioning, lighting, all these other things, right, and pay rent. And you had to pay employees to work there. And you had to stock the records that your customer wanted. What would happen if you stock 30 copies of a record and then it turns out to be a flop and nobody wants it? Then you stock, right? Then you got to put it on sale or just throw them away. We usually return them to the record company. But what would happen the other way around? What would happen if you don't have enough? All of a sudden there's big demand. Everybody wants to hear Coldplay, or back then it would be this is how old I am, Duran Duran, for crying out loud, right? So everyone wants to hear this new Duran Duran album, whatever it is, and you only have 3 copies. So people line up early in the morning. First few customers to come in get the album, and then that's it. And every other customer comes in and says, do you have this album? And you say no, that's a lost sale. That's it. Think about how different that business model is from the Apple business model. The iTunes business model is that they can download to you as many or as few copies of the album as customers want. So if something takes off, they have a digital copy of it, and they can sell millions of copies the next day, as much as their bandwidth will accommodate. That's a very different kind of business model when you think about it. Very different business model than running a record store in 1982. So, anyway, cost of goods sold. Expenses are the cost to bring in the revenues. If you're running a record store in 1982, then expenses are the cost of running that store. Cost of goods sold is the cost of buying, say, a record and then selling it at a certain price. Okay, now let's look at this. Sales revenue earned from the sale of Mac computers, iPods, iPhones, iPads, iTunes, other related products and services totals what?
65 to 25.
Let's all do it together. Come on, guys. 65 to 25. I'll tell you the truth, guys, and if you're working on the project right now, I don't know how many people are. I'd rather you set it aside and submit it later today than work on it in class. Because if you don't get this, then you're just going to have to learn it later. So I'm okay with that. I'm not supposed to tell you that, but if you want to submit the project a little late, you want to change it, I'm okay with that. But don't, if you haven't submitted it by tomorrow, ready, then you have a problem. And if you want to go change your project 3 weeks from now, that's going to be a problem too. The cost of those products is what? $39,541. So operating expenses include all the costs of generating sales besides the cost of goods sold. Non-operating revenues and expenses have very little to do with your operations. So these are things like interest expense or interest income. If you sell assets that aren't inventory, so let's say you have a building or a tractor or something and you sell it at a profit, that would be non-operating because you're not in the business of selling buildings in profit and buildings and tractors and stuff. That's not your business. Although if you're a real estate agent, right, you're a real estate developer, then it is. But it's like different kinds of revenues and expenses that have very little to do with what we're talking about, with what you do as your main business. So Apple's income statement lists how many different operating expense categories?
4.
Yeah, there are 4 over there for a total of how much?